And we're back. This is Michele Allman and
Alex Allman
with the Red Notebook. And today what we're going to talk about a little bit is Alex's experience in school with dyslexia, learning disabilities, and then navigating parenting 3 different children with 3 different, completely, utterly different learning styles and experiences with school. So, Alex, why don't you share a little bit about what it all was like, and starting from the very beginning, because I think there was definitely stress. So there was dyslexia, anxiety, learning disabilities, all related to your experience with school. But I think we started noticing stuff, early on in preschool. So why don't you just share a little bit about, from your perspective, the very beginning?
Yeah. Well, I don't remember too much of when I was really little, but I remember starting from when I was 4 years old. Feeling this sense of supreme anxiousness. I don't know if, I'm sure you do remember this because I was attached to your hip, but we would be going to your family friend's house that are people I've known since I was born, and I'd be too scared to walk in the door.
Yeah.
The Wickstrom's house, I would be paralyzed to go inside. And for at least an hour and a half, I'd be next to you the entire time. While all the other kids were playing, I could not get myself to leave your side.
Do you remember what that felt like? In your head?
Oh,
yes. What was going on in your head?
Honestly, I don't know why I felt the need to act that way, or why I felt like I wanted to be next to you at all times, because there's nothing for me to be afraid of.
Right.
I think it was just the attention. Walking through the door when everyone's hi, and they hug you, I felt this, and I still have that today.
Yeah.
I'm about to get married, and I'm terrified to walk down the aisle, because people are going to be standing up and looking at me. But I don't know why I felt that way. I still to this day cannot express why I have that fear.
Well, it's interesting because you're not shy.
Nope.
You were.
Was painfully.
We
worked through that part. I still face, though, the fear of being in front of people.
What is it you feel on the inside when you feel that fear of someone looking at you? What is it?
Honestly, I don't know, because I truly don't care what people think of me.
Right.
When I take a step back and think about my thoughts and think about how I'm feeling, I always tell myself, why?
Lean in a little more.
Why are you feeling that way?
Yeah.
I don't really know. And it's really hard because everybody always asks me, Chase will ask me too, because I get these spurts of anxiousness, especially when we go in public places that there's a lot of people.
Right.
We went to a beer festival with his friends. He was super excited. And the whole time I was thinking about, oh my gosh, there's going to be so many people there. And I don't know why. And whenever someone asks me why, I try to think and try to rationalize the thought process, and I just can't. So that's why I think there is something chemically different in my brain.
That's really interesting. So, going back as a parent to share, so when you were born, being the first, obviously all parents are holy crap, we do not know what to do. There's no manual, this is scary. And definitely read a bunch of books. I talked about that before, where read a bunch of books on brain growth, on what happens, on, how a child's brain develops, why it develops that way, what they do, why they do what you do as a child. But I can remember in preschool, yes, dog has to go out. In preschool, you're absolute, utter fear.
Yeah.
And thinking, okay, well, this is, being the first child, you don't know. There's nothing to compare it to. There's no, what's normal, what's not normal, where there should be concerns, where there shouldn't be concerns. The good news is I had read a lot about child development, but knowing that you had this absolute, utter, terrified fear of the separation anxiety.
Oh God, yeah. And I think it was from you mostly only. Because when Nana would take me places, I still felt that, but from you the most, it was the hardest to be separated. You dropping me off at a friend's house for a sleepover, and I'd call you.
Right.
I'd call you maybe 3 hours in and be I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, it was not. Sorry, I gotta take, the dog's gotta come.
Should I?
Yeah, let him in. Okay, speaking of separation anxiety, oh my gosh, this dog. He's an old man and we love him, but goodness. Yeah, and I remember thinking, okay, what's going on? Why is there so much separation anxiety? And I don't remember being, I think back to when I was little and I did not have separation anxiety. I think Nana would probably support that I did not. I was not shy. I was self-conscious. So there's these different degrees of shy being like you utterly paralyzed.
Yeah.
You couldn't speak. You did not feel comfortable around people you didn't know. Where there's a difference between like shy, self-conscious, and aware, hyper aware of people paying attention, and then the anxiety element of it. So like when you were really, really little in preschool, definitely recall your shyness, and it took a while, and even being in preschool with our family friends, So it's so interesting how you felt. And then as you got a little bit older, like the anxiety side of it, where if clouds rolled in, the fear in your face.
The storms were the worst.
So I'm curious,
I don't know what it was. I had this irrational thought process, and I still to this day do this. This is why planes make me anxious, and I've been more and more anxious as time's gone on with planes. But I have this irrational thing where when something immediately makes me uncomfortable, like a huge burst of thunder, my brain goes to, oh my God, the tornado's coming in, our house is going to be ripped apart, and we might die. Like that's literally where my brain goes.
And you know it's happening.
Yes, I can feel it.
So do you recall, as a kid, the first time you thought,
I can't even remember.
Really?
Can't even remember. It's been like my entire life. I think there is seriously that is anxiety to a T.
Right.
It's a chemical imbalance that you literally cannot explain. Even if it's not chemical, whatever it is, it's unexplainable. And it's so hard because a lot of people, Chase is very logical. Right. The first thought process he has during an emotional time is logic. Mm-hmm. He's the type of guy that's why are you crying?
Yeah,
I'm the type and I know, and I'm the type that immediately goes to emotion. I react so instantly with emotion. Nothing else comes first except for I want to cry, I want to scream, or I don't even know. That's 90% of the time it's crying. But it's just a burst of emotion.
It so well, and I think so. The whole point of discussion around this is what we did to navigate that, to give you the tools to be able to function without any medication. You have never had,
never more than
we got to lean into this mic. It's making
you can still
sure
pick up this volume.
Yeah.
Sorry, James.
The fact that. When you were little, so, the whole point of this is really talking about and giving people some hope and some insight. So when you were really little, we knew that something was up, your nervousness. The shyness was one thing, and we thought, okay, so shyness really can be disabling. Yeah. And so we went through a whole bunch of different scenarios. We'd sit, and I don't know if you remember this, but we'd sit and be doing the what ifs. Mm-hmm. So what's the worst thing that could happen? Yeah. Let's picture the very worst thing that can happen. Okay, so the very worst thing could happen. How would we handle it? Yeah. And then what are the chances the very worst thing could happen? So you felt armed, I think, with some tools and knew, okay, really, could that possibly be happen? And I know, I remember your fear of articulating, standing up for yourself. That was one of the things as a parent. I was so scared of your being so shy you couldn't stand up for yourself. And so now what do we do? Because the world doesn't celebrate shy. Nope. The world chews up shy and spits it out. 100%. And so that is a really frightening thing as a parent to know, my gosh, my kid, I've got to give them the tools to be able to get through life, right? And so knowing something was up, the shyness was one thing. Knowing you also had the hyper awareness in part because I think from the getting into preschool. Yeah. You're looking at something and going, this isn't making sense to me, but it's making sense to other kids.
That was the biggest thing.
And so how, when you were in a classroom, and I think the importance of sharing this insight is so that people understand from the child's perspective.
From the person who has the learning disability.
What was going on?
Well, because not very many people understand what dyslexia is. A lot of people are like, oh, you write backwards and you see backwards. Nope, not necessarily. I actually see letters perfectly forwards. I don't ever see anything literally flipped backwards. What happens for me is I could literally read a page 12 times in a row and I have no idea what I just read. I could not tell you what I just read. So reading through a test, when you look at a question and you understand what the question is asking you, you can answer it. When you read it 800 times and you still don't understand what it's asking you, it's kind of hard to get through a test.
Right.
And so with reading, I was extremely slow. When we did the time testing, they were always Ooh, that one's a little bit under her age group. That was hard. I think also with timed reading, I felt that anxiety on top of the fact that I already knew going into it I wasn't going to be reading at the same level. Because my whole life in school, they tell you what your scores are. They tell you what's going on. You could tell by the other kids when they hear me read, they're like, why can't she pronounce those words? Which was a lot of the things, like popcorn reading in school. Oh my gosh.
Now explain what popcorn reading is.
So popcorn reading, I don't know if they do this everywhere, but in the school I went to, popcorn reading is like the teacher's going to select a student and they'll have them read a paragraph. Once that student's done, they pick another student. And it just goes from there. So I'm sure, as you know, kids being kids, they're going to pick either the people they're friends with or the people they're making fun of. I happen to be one of the people they're making fun of. So a lot of times I would get picked multiple times during this reading thing, and I would sit there and count because I would try to see if I could guess what paragraph I was going to get so I could practice it before it came to me so I could say the words correctly and take a little bit of time to like pronounce things out. That's another thing with dyslexia. Pronunciations is really hard. And spelling is almost impossible because for a normal person like my sister Sam, she's basically like a photogenic, is that what you call it, photogenic learner?
Well,
she can look at a page and know what it says.
Reading comprehension for her is very high.
So for her, spelling's easy because when she pronounces a word, she sees it in her head.
Yeah.
For me, when I look at a word on paper, can't pronounce it in my head, when I'm trying to spell a word I'm pronouncing, it comes out exactly how I hear it in my head. And 90% of the times in the English language, that's not how words are spelled.
Right.
So when you spell out a word exactly how you're hearing it, it comes out wrong 90% of the time. So for me, it was difficult because not very many people felt that way.
Yeah.
And nobody really understood. I couldn't describe it. When someone asked me, why don't you read the same? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's no way for me to describe exactly what I'm feeling in my head. So a lot of my anxiety stemmed from that as well, because kids would laugh, they make fun of you. They don't mean to, because naturally kids...
Well, it's a natural thing.
Yeah,
it's like a tribal behavior-ish kind of thing. And so I think the important thing here is that we want to give parents and kids tools to understand it'll be okay.
Yeah.
I think the hard part is that the traditional school system for a kid like you was horrifying.
It's not designed for people like me.
No, it was horrifying. I think if you were to look back and say, had it been like this, where maybe you had the opportunity to hear rather than to be forced into a speed reading environment in front of other kids where there was no opportunity, there's no way it was going to be successful. Yeah. Right?
Well, and it's interesting because there's no way that traditional school will ever be able to really cater to everybody because it's just too difficult. When you have a teacher in front of 30 kids, that's one person teaching 30 other people. It's very hard for them to necessarily make something designed for each and every single one of them. But if I could make a school for people with learning disabilities, it'd be very differently laid out. You wouldn't be sitting in rows in a classroom. I'd be having beanbags everywhere, sensory items, things that you can hear, smell, taste. Because for someone with learning disabilities, whether it's dyslexia, ADHD, there's a couple other ones that I just don't know of. But people with learning disabilities don't learn with a book. They don't learn by you standing on the chalkboard and pointing at something. They learn by touching. They learn by smelling, seeing, doing. It's a lot of these sensory things that really help me. Even speaking to me isn't really gonna do too much. Like when I tell you at work, you have to give me something, teach me how to do it, and I have to do it over and over before I can really grasp it.
Right.
You just telling it to me, I'm not gonna, if you ask me, did you understand everything? No, but I'll figure it out along the way. If I start doing it and I start figuring out each piece to the puzzle, I can put that all together myself. It just takes me a lot longer. So in college, they gave me more time. They'd read my tests to me. Right. Ask you if you understand the question before you move on. They slowed the time down a lot for you. I think they gave me 2 extra hours in college.
So what do you think, is setting kids up for success? We know that everything has changed. And there's so much dialogue now about how the public school system, traditional schools do not work for a lot of kids. There's a lot of kids that are falling through the cracks possibly, and they're never seeing their full potential, which is really sad. If you think, like, if there's anything in this world that makes me deeply sad, it's that there are children and there are people out there that have massive potential.
Yeah.
So much to offer this world, and whether it's their circumstances, whether it's their home situation, whether it's their economic situation, whatever the case may be, their learning situation, they are never seeing that full potential, never providing the world with their gift.
Yeah.
And I think that if there were one thing that could happen, and I used to fantasize about this, I'm not kidding, this is how weird I was. As a kid, I would dream about winning the lottery so that I could, one, buy my parents stuff, like get their house fixed up.
That's funny.
I used to think about, like, I dreamt about winning the lottery so that I could put like new shutters on our house for Nana and Papa. I don't know. It was very interesting. And then the other thing, so it was less about me. I'm not a materialistic person. I don't care about stuff. But the other was to be able to build and create a school that explored all the gifts that a kid had in an environment, especially like the inner cities, where there seems to be little hope.
Yeah,
right,
100%.
And ironically, I mean, the truth of the matter is, I'm a capitalist. I believe in meritocracy. I believe that that you should be rewarded based on the work that you provide, that you do, and that the merit of the work that you do. There's no hand-me-outs. There's no entitlement. I am sickened by entitlement.
Yeah.
However, in that same regard, the truth is that there are so many environments that kids never get an opportunity to see their full potential. Yeah. So if you were to go back to school and say, okay, in a world to explore the opportunities for kids that struggle, and especially kids that they're straight to medication. Now, in full transparency, you had medication for the ADHD.
Very small dosages.
And that made a difference for you.
Yeah, but the best thing about that for me was that my doctor listened to me. Because I told him, I said, I don't want to be a different person. While this does set me back, I do not want this medication to change how I act, the way I feel. I don't want that.
Right.
That is the last thing, because you hear all the time with ADHD pills, beware, it could change their personality, it might make them like a zombie. I wanted nothing to do with that. I said, I'd rather struggle than become a different person. So he put me on 10 milligrams of not even the regular form of Ritalin. It was like a
Myelothin.
Yeah, something. It was something different than Ritalin, but it was so low dosage that I could take it as needed. It was not a regular thing. I didn't take it every single day at this time of day. If I knew I had a test that week, I was going to take it when I studied and then take it when I took the test. I didn't take it regularly.
Right.
Where there's kids that take that all the time to even function. And that to me is just like, and I apologize if anyone is on medication, it really helps them, but it sickens me because you're literally changing who you are.
So I want to talk about that. Like, what were the things for you, that made a difference when we would work through stuff? Because we've talked about it, but like, I'm really, from inside your brain, one of the things that naturally as a parent I would do was I would allow you to think for yourself. Yeah. So I remember sitting in with the counselors and
you always let me talk for myself.
Yeah. When we were in with the counselors, I remember them asking, I'd say, Alex, how do you feel about that? Or with the doctor. It was, he needed to speak with you to understand so that I wasn't talking for you. But like when you were dealing with the anxiety, that kind of thing, what were the things going on in your head? You're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to make it through. Because we didn't medicate the anxiety.
To be honest, with the anxiety, you literally just have to face it. Like, I would feel my stomach exiting my butthole. Really? Like, I was so petrified. My hands would shake. But you know what I always tell myself? Because every single time I feel this way, after it's over, I'm completely fine. So it's this sense of like, I am fully aware. And this is the part about anxiety that not very many people understand. It's really easy for someone who doesn't feel that way to say, well, it's fine. Like, just do this, just do this. Nothing you say is going to make a difference. I appreciate it. Like, everybody that's ever tried to give me advice on that, I appreciate it. It does help somewhat. Right. It gives you just that little bit of comfort, like people are there, but it's never going to change the way that I feel. So basically what happens is I freak out until I'm up there, and then once I'm up there and doing it, like speech class, for example, I freak out, full blown, like sweating, my palms, I'm like counting everybody in front of me, rubbing my legs, picking my fingers. Once I get up there and I start talking, I'm like, all right, this isn't too terrible. Right. Like, I'm okay. I'm fine. I look at one person or the teacher especially, that was really helpful, especially in speeches, just look at the teacher. Because that's number one, it's an adult. 90% of the time they're your parents' age. You're not as uncomfortable with the idea of embarrassment in front of them.
Right.
So if I like tripped up on a word, looking at the teacher didn't make me uncomfortable. Looking at my friend in the front row giggling makes me uncomfortable.
Well, in speech class, I mean, even I, who's done it enough, like been in front of public, done public speaking, is not comfortable. I don't like it. Like if you were to tell me, there are people who love it.
Yeah.
There are people who love it.
Well, I gotta turn this off because it's radiating heat.
I am not one of those people. I mean, I do it, but I don't love it.
Yeah.
I'd much rather have a one-on-one conversation.
Yes.
But like the anxiety where, for the fears that you would feel like, the things that the weather or the things like things that were irrational, where you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Why am I feeling this way? Like, what were the things going on in your head, and then what'd you do?
Like, how did I stop myself?
Yeah.
Well, do you remember when storms would come in Illinois and the trees would start to blow real hard?
Yes.
I took all my pillows from my bed and created an area in the basement.
Yeah.
Because you hear on the news or whatever, your teachers tell you when a tornado comes, you go to the basement. That was my comfort. Was sheltering myself, making myself feel that comfort. And even though you guys love the storms and you always are like, it's gonna pass, my brain is like, this house is gonna blow off of the top of us.
So your brain goes straight to completely off the charts.
Like if I get turbulence on a plane, I'm like, oh my God, we're falling out of the sky.
And then you gotta really...
I have to really... So something that helps, this is really weird. I don't necessarily do the traditional praying. We never really went to church that much, so I don't really know the history behind prayers and what they're meant for. So the way I talk to God is when I feel those senses of anxiety, I apologize for feeling that way.
And you know what? So we'll get into faith more because we aren't
so
untraditional religious, but I am a person of faith.
Same.
So it's not, I have conversations with God every day, and what's the reason that I think this is so intriguing, and for so many people this is such I think an intriguing topic, is that I almost feel like we all walk the line between sane and crazy every day.
Everyone's got a little crazy.
Well, we're human. But every day we walk the line between I've got it together and I'm going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And I think even people who are rock solid, like really got their shit together, still there are moments when you have that little something. And so I think our ability to have a conversation with our God, and it can be anything. That it's about being humble enough to know there's another power out there, something bigger, something perfect, but in its perfection there is imperfection. And we are that perfectly imperfect result.
Well, and because of that, I tell myself, I'm like, if God wanted you to fall out of the sky, Alex, he would make you fall out of the sky. Stop predicting what he's going to do for you.
And that's where the apology is interesting.
I seriously sit there now and I say, like, God, I'm so sorry for thinking this. Like, I don't know why I'm thinking this. I really shouldn't be thinking this way. Please don't do this to me. I don't want that. I don't know why my brain is saying this to you. Because, like, my thought process is when my brain does that, I'm telling God.
Right.
The plane's going to fall out of the sky. Don't tell him that.
Right.
What do you mean?
Right.
Or like when I'm driving in a car and I'm behind a truck that has those big metal poles, I literally think to myself, like, is this thing gonna fly back at me?
Right.
These are regular thoughts on a daily basis. Like, I can't even begin. People think it's like not a regular thing. And a lot of my friends that claim they have anxiety and have gone to like doctors and gotten prescribed, like the way they describe their thought process to me, I'm like, that's nothing like what I feel.
Right.
I feel
and
this
so
every day. Well, and I'm not going to say any names just in case people watch it, but like one of my friends during college, she went through hard times with like breakups and whatever.
Right, which is normal.
And very normal.
Right.
And during those times, she was sad or whatever. So she started doing less homework, staying home more. She went and saw the college psychiatrist. And let me tell you, in college, they give you pills like it's candy. Like
so that's disgusting.
Yep. And she got put on like 600 milligrams, or I don't know what the real milligrams are. That might be way more than what it normally is, but very high dosage of an anti-anxiety medication.
Because she was sad, because she broke up with a boyfriend.
She was sad, she felt like she wasn't eating enough and like felt all these symptoms. And I'm like asking like, well, what's your thought processes? Like, how do you feel on a regular basis? And nothing was out of the ordinary from like a normal person. And I'm thinking to myself like, well, maybe something's really wrong with me then.
Right.
But I've never been someone that has ever considered an anti-anxiety medication because I'm meant to be this way.
Well, that's exactly it.
There's a reason I'm like this.
And what's so incredible is that when given the opportunity to believe that imperfection is perfection, that God created you with purpose, that is your freedom to be who you are.
Yeah, well, like ADHD is a gift. The fact that people are literally suppressing this with 50 milligram Vyvanse, which literally makes you sweat and vomit if you stop taking it.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that's disgusting for a child to take something that is that potent. You have to wean off of it.
Yeah.
But it changes who you are. You're suppressing that energy. The reason you have all that energy is for a reason.
Well, and that's
use your hands, do some woodworking, like find clay maybe, like something. And that's another thing with school. I wish they would give you the opportunity to explore those unconventional things earlier.
Yeah.
Like let a 10-year-old explore plumbing. Why not?
Right.
Why not? Like let them put together piping.
Right.
Let them do a woodworking class in elementary school.
Yeah.
Well, obviously not with all the crazy saws, but like why not?
Right.
Why are we doing math, science, English, and that's the only things they're teaching us? Like, put us in a auto shop class. I got lucky because our high school had foods, auto shop, carpentry. There's an animal class where there was a cat walking around the room. Sam did that. That was great, but 90% of the schools in America don't have things like that. We were in a very blessed area.
And we are not short of funding to schools.
Exactly.
That is not the issue. And anyone who thinks it is full of crap. They're not paying attention.
Yeah.
It's not a funding issue. It's a cluster issue, but I agree with you so much, and I think that it's not that reading and writing and science are not important.
The fundamentals are important.
It's that you can learn and gather that information in other ways.
Well, and what you always told me that helped me through school, especially when I struggled, was like, don't think of it as you're learning math. Think of it as you're learning how to learn. Mm-hmm. Like, while reading might be really hard and doing that assignment might really suck, if you get a C, you're still passing. Just think of it as your learning experience. Not a lot of kids have that though.
Did you ever feel like, did it make a difference? Because we didn't, and it's important to know like how you think you're presenting and then how it's perceived, right? Because perception is reality.
Yeah.
So when we would say, I always told you, tests don't mean anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't measure who you are as a human being.
Oh, 100%.
Did that matter?
Yeah, because there was a lot of kids I knew in school. So I'll bring it back a little bit to add to this story. I was put in a lot of alternative classes,
right,
which means you're not in like the regular English, you're in the English with an extra teacher. It wasn't all that helpful all the time, but I met a lot of people there. And a lot of these kids, despite the fact that it was known that they had something wrong, their parents still held this standard of like, you must hit this grade.
Yeah.
And for those of us who struggle from this stuff, parents, I can't tell you enough, my mom and dad said pass. They didn't say we're expecting an A. If Alex got a B, that's a celebratory moment. If Sam got an A+, that's also celebratory. Adam was right in the middle. So like for me, a C isn't terrible. I passed. You passed that test. Way to go. Other kids, they're like getting screamed at for a C.
Yeah.
And I feel like that ruins self-confidence, that adds to the anxiety you feel because you're different. And it's just not realistic.
Yeah.
What interview have you ever gone to that's asked you for your GPA? Please tell me, someone.
Yeah.
Someone tell me, unless it's a graduate program, unless you're doing like a field study where you're part of a university, nobody cares what your GPA was.
Yep.
I could have a 1.5 GPA in school and I could walk into that interview and crush it.
Yeah.
They're not gonna ask me.
Yep.
Why does it matter? That's a score. It's like
it doesn't.
putting people in a box and it doesn't make sense.
It absolutely doesn't matter.
So yes, that helped me a lot because what I always told myself was while I am really stressed and while I do want to do well, I know at the end of the day, my family still loves me, and this doesn't determine whether or not I'm smart.
Yeah.
I knew since I was little that I wasn't dumb. I mean, I'm sure there was times where I felt like very self-conscious and told myself I was dumb, but immediately after I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not dumb.
Well, I think,
this just isn't for you.
Yeah, and it's the self-esteem without making kids feel a false sense of superiority. Mm-hmm. Like the idea, like I am so opposed to 8th place trophies. We've talked about that. Like it's meritocracy, and it can be very black and white in many cases. If you stink at something, you might stink at something. Okay, explore what you're not stinky at.
Like sports for me, I think I was involved in every single sport possible and nothing stuck. clearly that wasn't something
That
I
wasn't
was
your
meant to
thing.
do.
Yeah, that wasn't your thing. And I
But
think
that actually helped a lot with my anxiety as well.
Yeah.
Was you putting me in all of those things. While in the moment I was like, I don't want to go to tennis or I don't want to do lacrosse. I met friends.
Yeah.
I had people that I could talk to, and whether or not it made me uncomfortable, it got me past the hump.
Well, and I think when applied appropriately and used with purpose, the sports for a kid who's not an athlete can be really powerful.
Well, because number one, it forced me to be in front of people, but in a way that I was supported by a team.
Yeah.
So while it was still really anxiety inducing for me, it was something that I had people to lean on.
Yeah.
And that's also what helped me make the friends, because I would tell them, like, I was so honest with people. I'm like, I do not want to be here right now. I don't want to be standing up in front of all these people. Like during my cross country time, I told my parents not to yell for me. I said, do not... Sam, I said, do not yell for me, please. Like, that's the last thing I want.
Yeah.
And most kids that are involved in sports love that attention.
Yeah.
Love it. Like, Adam, I'm sure, lives off of that scream from the stands. I hate that. If I could have earplugs in and blinders on, I would do that.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I was, what's crazy about that is that as a kid, I was not shy, but I was very self-conscious. I didn't like people staring at me. And as I've gotten to be an adult, I've gotten very comfortable with it. It's fine, not a problem.
Yeah.
I don't prefer it. I'm not an attention hog at all. But what's interesting is your level of really just not wanting
any of it
to be the center of attention, yet you are remarkably articulate. Remarkably
it's weird.
Good and being, you draw people in.
It's very weird, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is. Like, I couldn't tell you because and it's funny because I know that I'm being irrational.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is the weirdest part about my thought process is literally immediately after I'm aware.
Yeah.
Immediately after I'm very self-aware.
Maybe that's it. It's your awareness.
Probably it is
like you're so in tune, and this is something I think is also unique, and where the gifts in the learning disabilities came are in your ADHD and the anxiety is actually that self-awareness, that reflection, that ability to be inside your head and think about it.
Well, I have incredible empathy.
Yeah.
Like my empathy, I think, is far beyond 90% of the people I know.
Yeah.
While I am more of a sheltered person, I'm an introvert at heart. I'm a homebody. I would rather not be in a group of 12 people. Like my ideal friend hangout time is like one person at a time.
Yeah.
Because I like to give my entire energy to someone.
Yeah.
And to do that with 100 people is impossible.
Yeah.
So that's why I have such a small group. I have maybe 5 close friends.
Yeah, but I think that's healthy.
Yeah, but like for me, when you see, especially at my age, there's people that have 50 friends that they're hanging out with regularly. Like every weekend they're going to a brunch with a table that's like as long as this room.
Do you ever wonder though if there's real connection?
Oh, there's not. I was in it.
Yeah.
And not to hate on sorority life or anything, but like I was in a sorority and I saw what that was like.
Right.
I see the image that's put online and that is portrayed to everyone outside, but then I also see the inside look.
Yeah.
And I think sororities are good for some people, but for someone like me, it was just like the whole time I'm looking at them like, you don't actually like each other.
Yeah.
Like I watch your interactions. There's no real bond. Nobody's giving any real energy, any real support or anything like that. But my empathy is so high because of the way that I feel inside that the first thing I think of when I meet somebody is what's their history? Why are they acting this way? Like if I don't like the way someone's acting, instead of me thinking, oh, I hate them, I think like, why are they thinking that way? Did something happen to them? Do they struggle with something? Are they depressed? Like that's the first thought I have.
Yeah.
And not very many people feel that way.
That's amazing though. And you're right. So few people, so few people I know feel that way. Where it's just that incredible empathy. And the first thought, the natural thought you go to is, I'm not going to judge, I want to understand. Mm-hmm. And to live in, if only more people had that no judgment, understanding.
Yep.
Well,
and like, for example, this is a great example. Going to McDonald's and their ice cream machine's broken, and the lady tells me in a rude way. The first thing I'm going to think is not, wow, that one was rude. It was, that woman probably had at least 50 people before me screaming in her face over a broken ice cream machine.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is say, thank you so much. I hope you have a great day, and walk away. why am I going to get angry over a 50-cent ice cream cone?
Right.
Just go down the street to Dairy Queen, go to the store and get a pint. Like, what are we so mad about? So that's my thought process.
Yeah.
I'm probably the nicest person to customer service employees. Even if you tell me I'm getting a $100 charge on my bank account and I think it's ridiculous, I'm going to tell you, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your help.
You know, it's funny, right? I over the years, and now, you know, being in my 50s, early 50s that is, I catch myself, and I'll be, you know, there are times where same thing with thoughts. I'll catch myself. I'm thinking about a whole bunch of stuff. I'm in a hurry. I'm behind somebody, and they're driving slow. They're, you know, doing something, and I'm so mad. And immediately the thought, I'm angry.
Well, and you know what? That happens to me too. Like driving down 12, which by the way is a ranch road that's 2 lanes, and there's people that drive 12 miles an hour out of the speed limit. My first thought is anger too. But then after I say a couple things, I'm like,
why?
What are you doing?
And do you ever wonder, like, maybe there's a reason that person was put in front of me to slow me down?
Save me.
There's an accident that's about to happen if I were there. You know, it's one of those things where
perspective.
Sometimes I really wonder, like, why? It's almost like the society sits on edge so much. And it isn't politics, it isn't that. It's like we are exploring elements of human nature now because of different things that exist, different technologies. Now we have social media, and it's so, you know, and having that it's been around for a while now, like we are really exposed.
Well, and talk about an area that I have a hard time understanding is social media. Because for somebody that suffers truly with, like, I legitimately think I have true anxiety, like to the core. I know I've been diagnosed, but like to the core anxiety, where if I went to a doctor, they would medicate me based on my thoughts. I don't want that, but I hear on social media every day. The biggest thing I've ever seen, and I hope people don't get offended by this, but everyone's posting that they're depressed. Everyone's posting that they're anxious. Everyone's posting that they have a mental illness. No, you don't. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry, but there are people that I am friends with that talk about that as if they have clinical anxiety, and I'm like, you have no idea.
Right.
The thought process of somebody that really feels this way.
Yeah.
That
why
feels
is that? Like, why do we feel the need to?
I think it's a sense of you're craving sympathy.
Yeah. Like, why? Why do we do that? Why do we feel that need?
And I've never talked about my anxiety publicly. Not
So
one time have I ever told, and even my friends, I don't tell them that I have anxiety.
Right.
I tell them, this is how I'm feeling right now. And a lot of people go, why are you feeling like that? Oh, I wish I could tell you, Sally.
Right.
I have no idea.
Right.
I really don't. And that's the number one thing that reminds me that I truly do have something different.
Right.
Is that when other people feel a certain way, they can tell me why.
Right.
I've asked my friends, well, why do you feel that way? If they give me an answer, I'm like,
yeah.
I wish I had that answer.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's so insightful. It is so insightful because it's the awareness, like the awareness.
Hyper-aware.
Yeah.
And that's part of anxiety. Like people that really, truly have a form of anxiety understand that.
Yeah.
Hyper-awareness.
Yeah.
And I don't judge people for saying those things. Everyone's allowed to feel what they feel. If what you're feeling it to you is anxiety, then I'm going to respect that.
Right.
Do I think you should be medicated with 50 milligrams of Xanax every day? No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think that we should be medicating for mental illness. And I know people think that that's crazy in today's world.
There is some mental illness that has to be.
Yeah.
Chemical imbalances, bipolar, schizophrenia, those things have to be.
I'm meaning more like depression and anxiety.
Like your daily, like I'm sad today.
Yes.
You don't need to medicate.
Well,
You can
because-
medicate with other than just prescriptions.
Well, and I
too.
think that the definition of what depression and anxiety is, the lines have been blurred very much through the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
So what I mean by we shouldn't medicate for mental illness, I do not mean schizophrenia and bipolar and all that. I mean your average depression and anxiety. There's certain levels of depression that do need help, but I do not think medication is forever for somebody that has depression and anxiety. My entire life, I've had anxiety, and I was never, and don't judge for this, but my mom never told me that I was diagnosed with anxiety.
Yeah.
But you want to know what's amazing about that is never once did I tell myself, you have anxiety.
Yeah. And
Not once.
We chose not to do that with purpose because we knew that by putting a name to it, defining it, it would become, you would become it.
I was gonna become, it was gonna use it as a crutch, as a cane, like, never once did I tell myself you have something wrong. I just fought through those things. I fought through those feelings, and I made it out on the other side.
Because we were the medication in terms of providing you're not off the hook for the things that are your responsibility. We are your unconditional love. And it was, I think probably, if there's anything as a parent that I think was remarkably important, was that it was the cherishing your existence.
Yeah.
It wasn't worshiping your existence. It was cherishing your existence. You know, in other words, knowing that you were placed in our care for a reason.
Yeah.
There was a match. There was something you were giving us, we were giving you.
Yeah.
That was the intent. And that we cherished and celebrated and appreciated the fact that we were given that gift.
Yeah.
And all that came with it.
What's really sad is there's a lot of kids out there, like, in those alternative classes, 90% of the time, you kind of get mixed in with a whole bunch of things. We have behavior issues, learning disabilities, actual true disabilities, whether that's physical or mental, and not necessarily to say special ed, but there's a lot of things like people with Asperger's and all that stuff.
Right.
So very different range of people, and I saw a lot of the common themes, and that was issues in families.
Yeah.
A lot of kids were facing severe difficulties in school and behavioral issues because at home was so horrendous for them.
Yeah.
Like the kids that were throwing chairs across the room, and I'm not saying this with everyone, there are kids that have true anger issues not because of the way that they're raised, but a lot of those kids had told stories to our class about the abuse they faced or the mental, emotional strain that their parents put on them, and it was pretty sad. Yeah. And I know a lot of the kids struggled because they didn't have the support at home.
Yeah.
So like when I was over those classes and I was telling you I don't think I should be in these, and we pulled myself out, a lot of those kids don't have that support, so they're stuck in that.
Yeah.
And then they're grouped, and then they're told this is what you are, this is where you're supposed to be. When I went home, I was told, you're better than this, you're capable of this, you are confident, you are smart, you are kind, and all these other things. So I constantly went to school knowing I had something at home that cared about me.
Right.
This school doesn't, whether or not this teacher thinks I'm smart, doesn't matter.
Right.
My parents think I'm smart. My siblings think I'm well, they used to tease me a little bit, but my siblings think I'm smart, I'm sure they do. But like I had that extra backup. Not very many people have that extra backup. Or at least some of the people I was around.
Yeah, you were exposed to.
Yeah.
Do you think that being in those classes actually gave you the opportunity not only to see how blessed you were, but also to have impact on those kids?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was really good friends with a lot of the kids in there. I helped a lot of those kids through some difficult situations. Another thing about myself is I give 2,000,000,000% when someone comes to me with a true severe issue.
Right.
Like if you come to me and you're crying about your mom, I'm going to sit there with you and talk to you and give you true, real advice. I'm not going to just walk away or give you some little BS so that I can get away faster.
Right.
I really pour my energy into it.
Right.
And sometimes a little too much. Sometimes when I was younger, I gave too much to my friends.
Yeah.
I gave too much of myself.
Yeah.
I was allowing too many people to affect me. And I mean, you remember, there's times where I would be crying over someone else's issue.
Right.
Someone else was facing something and I'm crying over it. Yeah. And that's something that not a lot of people I've seen have. I mean, there's levels to it, but I go so deep.
Yeah.
I put so much energy in. And that's another reason why I can't have that many friends, because it's just exhausting.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Well, a lot of the way that, and you know, some people may feel this way, is that like it is all into my family.
Oh,
like, it's all in. That is it's
number
just,
one.
It just takes it all.
Yeah.
And the intensity, you know, the intensity of the love. Is it can, you know, it's overwhelming.
You don't necessarily have much more to share after that. You know?
You think it's probably endless to some extent, but it's like I really contain it with family, and that, you know.
Yeah.
That's it just is what it is.
Well, and that was like really one of the most helpful things for me throughout school was having that core. Yeah. Having that foundation already. Because without a floor underneath you, it's way easier to like
slip to the ground.
Yeah. Like it's
so
way easier.
If we were to wrap this up with like advice, and to say, okay, whether it's a parent of a young child that's like, something's up, or the parent of a teenager where they're really struggling and it's like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think from your perspective, having managed through a lot of that?
The number one thing is listen. Please don't shut them down. I hear a lot of parents, and I know a lot of parents, I've seen it, that immediately, you don't feel like that. You don't even know what you're talking about. Like, shut it down. Telling their child how they feel, telling their child what they're gonna do and how they're gonna fix it. Not gonna work.
Yeah.
You have no idea. Really, even as a parent who knows your child like the back of your hand, you have no idea what's in their head. Let them speak. Let them express themselves. You guys would let me cry irrationally. There was never a, shut up, stop crying. It was like, all right, let's work through this. When you calm down, let's talk about it. When you calm down, let's go over why are we feeling this way? Why are the tears coming? 90% of the time I can't tell you, but you let me do it.
Yeah.
You let me express myself, especially going to a doctor. Don't speak for your kid.
Yeah.
You're not the one facing it. Whether they're 5, 15, whatever age, let them talk.
Yeah.
If you go to see a psychiatrist or someone that's testing your child, let them speak. Sometimes even walk out of the room. Let them be alone with the doctor. Because 90% of the time, they might be hiding something from you the way that they feel. I never did because I felt that comfort level.
Right.
But they might be hiding something. Let them speak, because if they can get out their thoughts and express themselves, they can be helped a lot easier.
Yeah.
It could be a much better journey for everybody. If you just let them talk, let them express themselves, let them face the challenges they're facing.
Yeah.
You can't always fix it for them either. Don't do their homework.
Yes.
If they get a C or D, they get a C or D.
Yep.
That is what they were supposed to get. Let them do it.
Yep.
Don't hold the pencil. Like, I was writing 5s and 4s backwards every time I wrote 5s and 4s, and all Dad would do was circle them. We'd go back and erase them all, fix it. We'd do it again.
Yep.
It wasn't like he was like, oh, forget it, I'm just going to write it out for her. Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
Yeah.
I was always the one holding the pen, always the one in control of what I was doing with school and my friends. So it's listening and allowing them to express themselves to you, and don't tell them what they're feeling.
Yeah.
You have no clue. You can observe and you can try to understand, but you're never going to know.
Right.
So you can't talk for them.
Yeah.
That's the two main things, is listen and don't speak for them.
That's awesome. That's awesome advice. And I sincerely hope that the insights that we share make a difference for some people, even if it's giving a little bit of like, hey, wait a minute, I've experienced that same thing, or phew, I'm not the only one.
Someone else feels it.
Yeah, or that's a really good way to look at it. Okay, cool, I need to change my mindset, because at the end of the day, we as parents make mistakes, adults make mistakes, kids make mistakes. We're human, we're perfectly imperfect. I think that, you know, from a parent perspective, one of the most important things I would ever say to a parent is stop and realize that your children were given as gifts. They're not yours to own.
100%.
They're not yours to control. It's a gift. It's the ability that to nurture a life, to become a productive human being.
They're not a trophy either.
It's not a trophy. You don't live vicariously through your kids. Your kids will be your kids. Cherish their existence. Be there to support what they were meant to be. And that's not always obvious, and it's not always easy.
And it's not always what you wanted.
No, and it's not always what you want it to be. But that they're a gift when given the ability to blossom into what was intended, right?
Yeah, and stop putting them in a box.
Yeah.
Understand that there's so much more than just traditional school and traditional jobs.
Yeah.
There's plenty of things, especially with the internet. Creativity is shining right now.
Yes.
Shining.
Who gives a flippin' crap what your neighbors think, what your friends think, what Joe Bob is doing at school, and what he's accomplished? Focus on the gifts that your child has.
100%. That's a good ending.
Yeah, I would say so. All right, well, thanks so much for listening to The Red Notebook. This is Michele Allman and
Alex Allman.
And we thank you again for listening. We will continue this kind of dialogue. We'd love to hear what you think. You know, we realize this is new and it'll take some time for people to find it, but please share it, because I think these are important conversations.
100%.
Thumbs up,
Subscribe,
hit that notification button, and we will talk to you again next week.
Peace.
Peace.